See what a 500-year-old shark looks like up close. Watch what happens when a gigantic flashing squid tries to attack a submersible, and what exactly is this unidentified object whizzing through the water. These are some of the scariest deep-sea creatures caught on camera by submarines. What are we looking at here? When I first saw this thumbnail, I thought this was a fishing net, but no, this is some kind of living organism. This incredible piece of footage was shared by Tahoe Deep on YouTube. The creature is some kind of Siphonophore, a class of marine animals that contains 175 species that we know of anyway. As for exactly what species this one is, we're not sure. From what I've seen, Siphonophores can look vastly different between species. What we do know is that this video was captured in the Gulf of Mexico, about 4,000 feet deep, or just over 1,219 meters deep. I've never seen a creature like this in my life. It reminds me one of those old school iTunes visualizers or like Windows screensavers where you'd have like a trippy animation going on, kinda. A very odd, obscure reference, but I'm sure some of you will get it. Sperm whales and giant squids, some of the largest animals in the ocean. Footage of either is incredible to see, but how about the aftermath of a battle between the two? This footage was shared by EcoWatch Discovery Mauritius. As you can clearly see, a group of whales are coming back from a hunt, and one of them has the remains of a giant squid in its mouth. Getting up closer, you can see that its tentacle is still wrapped around the whale. It's pretty incredible footage. It's rare to see video of giant squids at all, let alone one in the mouth of a massive sized sperm whale. Turns out these animals fight a lot. They're both huge predators that are often locked in battles for survival. Based on this footage, I'd be placing my bets on these sperm whales. At our number 3 spot, we have the Mariana Trench Meg. Now this video is very much genuine, and I just find it really creepy. The idea of being lost deep beneath the sea and having this nasty thing creep up on you is pretty spine-tingling. This footage here was shared to YouTube by Deep Sea Oddities. It shows footage taken by equipment from a Japanese marine biology study about a mile underwater in the Mariana Trench. We see a really creepy looking shark swim into frame. It almost looks like a zombie shark or something to me. Nothing cute about this guy. I just kind of cringe watching the footage actually. It just gets too close to the camera for comfort, you know? Now apparently that's a baited cage in the frame there that it's swimming up to, which makes this shark pretty damn large. It doesn't look like it's been missing any meals. All I can say is I'm glad we don't live in the world of SeaQuest. Bet you weren't expecting to see a SeaQuest reference on this video. Now it turns out this creepy looking creature is actually called a Greenland shark. Here's another footage of a Greenland shark. Definitely an eerie looking animal, but incredibly fascinating. First off, these things are huge. One of the largest sharks in the ocean. They can grow up to about 21 feet or 6.4 meters long, sometimes more, and they can weigh over 2,200 pounds. Already terrifying. But here's the part that totally blows my mind. These sharks can live incredibly long. In fact, they're the longest living known vertebrate on Earth, with a lifespan of 250 to 500 years. That means there could be a Greenland shark out there right now that was alive well before the United States was founded. As for what they eat, they're apex predators. They hunt fish, seals, and basically whatever they can find. They live in some seriously deep water, around 650 to 3,000 feet down, and sometimes even deeper. So they've been difficult animals to study and are rarely ever seen. Take a look at this strange object flying by the camera. Just what the hell was that? This is a very strange video. It was captured by a remotely operated vehicle back in 2002 off the coast of Senriku, Japan. The thing passes by way too fast to determine what it is. It's not even clear if this is a living creature or some kind of object. What we're looking at here could be a USO, an unidentified submerged object. It's sleek looking, almost like a disc, and it's incredibly bright, so much that you can't make out any detail on it, if there even is any at all. So could this just be a ray of light? Well, it doesn't appear to be, for one. I mean, it does look like a solid object or organism. Plus, this footage was taken 421 meters down, or just over 1,381 feet. Not super deep, but enough that some ray of light from above wouldn't penetrate the water like this. According to the NOAA, or the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, light may be detected as far as 1,000 meters down in the ocean, but there is rarely any significant light beyond 200 meters. So, was this just a very fast fish or something else entirely? This is a really cool piece of footage. footage. Just what is this creature attacking this submersible? The footage was taken at a depth of around 1,280 meters or 4,200 feet. Something had clearly tried to latch onto the vehicle. As for what it is, well, we get a better look moments later. What you're looking at here is a flasher squid. Not much of a mystery why it's called a flasher squid. They have two photophores at the tips of their heads that flash. These are one of the largest squids in the world and are among the biggest known bioluminescent creatures on Earth, reaching lengths of up to 7.5 feet or 2.3 meters. They're very rarely spotted, which just makes this footage even more incredible. This deep sea diver was bitten by a shark, but an unlikely ally came to his rescue. Take a look. Here we see a shark latched onto this dude's leg. Now, luckily it's a very small shark, but I don't think there's any such thing as a good or even okay shark attack. Nobody wants this. Attached to the small shark though is a grouper, much bigger than the shark. Was the grouper just glad to find an easy meal? Yeah, but I'd like to believe that it saw an innocent man being attacked and swooped in to help. Then we watch as it pulls the shark off the diver and swims into the shadows to enjoy its meal. Now this is an absolute beast of a creature. This is a Bluntnose Sixgill shark captured on video in 2019, but if I didn't know any better, based on that tail, I'd think it was the Loch Ness Monster. So OceanX, in partnership with Cape Eleuthera Institute and a team of scientists, managed to make history by tagging a deep sea shark from a submarine for the very first time. They were after a pretty elusive creature, the Bluntnose Sixgill shark. This shark is ancient, really ancient. It's been around longer than most dinosaurs. The lead scientist on the mission was Dr. Dean Grubbs from the Florida State University's Marine Lab. He's been working on studying these sharks for years, but until now, the only way to tag one was by bringing it up to the surface. Not exactly the most ideal way to track an animal that spends its life in the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean. But this time, they did something no one had done before. They managed to tag the creature while it was still deep underwater using a submarine. It's a huge step forward in studying these deep sea predators, and now they have a way to track their movements without disturbing their environment too much. Pretty amazing and an absolutely wild piece of footage. What you're looking at here is not the tripod alien from War of the Worlds. This is a Magnapina squid, or a big fin squid, captured in the Central Pacific Ocean back in 2019 at a depth of 1,092 meters or 3,582 feet, courtesy of the Schmidt Ocean Institute. Big fin squids are just nuts looking. As you can see, its arms and tentacles are way longer than its body. They can stretch out 13 to 26 feet or 4 to 8 meters. These things also move in a really weird way. It doesn't really swim like other squids, darting through the water with speed. Instead, it sort of floats along with its arms stretched out, almost like it's just hovering or gliding. And since it lives so far down, way deeper than most submarines can reach, these creatures are hard to study. That's why not much is known about them. But whenever it's caught on camera, it always leaves people a little freaked out. It's not just the long arms, it's the way it moves and just how generally alien it looks. Alright, now this creature wasn't filmed by a submarine, but it was just too creepy looking not to show. So apparently this horrid looking monster is called a purple eel goby. Now at first, I thought this was a creature with multiple heads, which would have been awesome. That is not the case though, sadly. This is just a group of them gathered together. Still though, these things look like they crawled out of the upside down. They also look like they'd crawl into your body and eat you from the inside, but luckily they're more interested in small fish and crustaceans.
The Siphonophore is a crazy piece of work to which some of them can grow the length of a blue whale. They take the cake for the largest creature on Earth and can reach up to 150 feet in length. With a total of 175 species of this kind, they are scattered through all the Earth's oceans. But that doesn't mean you'll find any species in any part. Some are found in the waters of Portugal, nicknamed the man-o'-war for how venomous it is. Despite this alien-looking thing looking like a singular animal, it's actually a colony of individual organisms called zooids. Each zooid has their own specific function for survival, but are genetically identical to each other. Some will focus on feeding and digesting, while others focus on movement, swimming, or reproducing. Since zooids cannot survive on their own as a singular, they band together and depend on each other's help as they form a body. How this works is that a first singular zooid is hatched from a fertilized egg, and then once it develops its growth hormones, it then begins to create more zooids with itself. Nasty, wicked cool. These 3 submarine divers got a lovely surprise from a visit of a deep sea female shark. This video is more phenomenal than scary, as it starts out with the shark rolling around on the ocean floor, causing an immense amount of debris to fly around the submarine. When she emerges from this though, they get an amazing shot of her going over with prey in her mouth, really showcasing how large this girl is. Everyone in the submarine is just in awe, rightfully so. She then starts to take a huge interest in the machine, coming up closer again as she observes the submarine, checking out some of the gadgets it has, even trying to nibble at some of them. My favorite shot from this video, however, is when they get a clear image of her eye. How many of you can say you've made eye contact with a shark? It even rolls to the back of her head as she swims away. This lovely lady is known as the Bluntnose Sixgill shark, or the cow shark if you want to be mean about it. They are, sadly, listed as near threatened by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, because they are often exploited as a sport fish due to their popularity. The vampire squid. No, sorry, it doesn't drink the blood of its prey, but rather it was given the name because of its lovely dark red or jet black color. You can find these little guys anywhere in the tropical oceans and temperate waters, if you're willing to travel down 2,000 or 3,000 feet below. Despite only being able to grow up to 12 inches in length, these guys can projectile themselves the length of 2 bodies per second by spraying a jet of water through their mantle. They were first discovered by Carl Chun in 1903, who had an ambition to prove there was sea life past 550 meters below. If only he were here today. They have 8 arms that are connected by webbing, and are able to regenerate if they get into a bit of a scuffle with other sea life. Half of these 8 arms are covered in suckers, and also have small hairs on these legs as well, to help detect their prey. It has to wait for food to come out, since it sadly doesn't have feeding tentacles like other cephalopods, but thankfully only needs to eat twice a week. Their eyes are also considered to be the largest in comparison to their body size of any animal in the world. Sometimes marine life doesn't really care and will in fact attack your equipment. An extremely rare bioluminescent deep sea squid, known as the Dane octopus squid, was caught going in for a researcher's camera thinking it was food. The footage was caught with only being below by 1 kilometer down, and all that the crew was really aiming for was to observe the biodiversity of the seafloor. This squid is one of the largest known deep sea squids, with this specific one being 75 centimeters long, just under a meter, but can grow up to 7 feet in length. One of the scientists stated, descended on our camera assuming it was prey and tried to startle it with its huge bioluminescent headlights. It then proceeded to wrap its arms around one of our other cameras, which in turn captured the encounter in even greater detail. I think we were very lucky to have witnessed this. This squid is not only popular for its size, but rather the photophores it produces, making it the largest light source known to be in the sea as of right now. Truly beautiful, yet terrifying at the same time. This video was taken in the Gulf of Mexico with an ROV, a remotely operated vehicle that most underwater explorers used when they're exploring the deep blue sea. It's a little grainy, but we can still make out some sort of jellyfish-like creature making a very creepy appearance. I'm not sure what the researchers were doing in this video with the box, but as they pull away, some crazy looking tentacle creature makes its way over to it in a rather aggressive manner. If it is a jellyfish, it's definitely not one I've ever seen before. Its body is circular from one angle, but as it rotates we see that it's actually completely flat rather than spherical. Going through the comments, people seem to agree that it's what's known as a clinging jellyfish, and are usually found in the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. We don't have to worry about seeing them at beaches though, since they prefer a more calm and solitude environment. The internet is going crazy trying to decipher what type of jellyfish this is. Majority are saying that this is a comb jellyfish, but its odd shape at the beginning, looking very alien-like, has people fighting one another in the comments section. But as I further read into comb jellyfish, they might just be correct. Some are known to have round bellies and even tentacles like the one in this video has, but also makes them a part of a different family than the average jellyfish. They get their names because they use these things called cilia, which are little hair extensions on their body that help them swim, and also give the appearance of a brush and comb. It's really hard to see it in the one on this video, especially with with its deep black color. But we do get a moment of the cone jelly lighting up in a rainbow effect, which the cilias, along with its body, are producing. They do this when they are obviously threatened. I mean, I would too if I had a giant submarine camera in my face. In the end of this video, people also argued if it was accidentally torn to shreds or it produced its own ink. I believe the latter because this species of jellyfish can ink as well. A weird crossbreed of jellyfish and squid. These freaky little guys are found all over the world, ranging from the tropics all the way to the poles, but surprisingly not in fresh water. The deep sea lizardfish, one of the world's deepest living apex predators. These guys are ruthless because not only will they just eat about anything, they won't hesitate to nibble on someone they know. They are also hermaphrodites, having both male and female parts, to which scientists are speculating that it's because of their low population. However, when they do breed, they seem to have a maximum cap at how many they will produce, keeping just enough to have the species thrive, but not over the top to where finding food becomes an issue. Interesting. There really isn't that much known about these fish, as they just typically like to hang around on the ocean floors, going as far deep as 3,500 meters. They will literally just sit on the ocean floor as they wait for their prey to come by, trapping them with multiple rows of extremely sharp and long needle-like teeth. Maybe it's because this video was taken in 1998, but the eerie blue lighting does not help its case, making it all the more terrifying as its glowing eyes glare right back at you. The Goblin shark, also nicknamed the most unhinged, ugliest creature to ever exist. Sorry, that was personal. These crazy looking things are found in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, but the most common sightings are off the coast of Japan. One cool thing about them is that they are living fossils from over 100 million years ago. They come from the family Mitsukurinidae and are the only living representative that comes from that ancient lineage. They also have some pink coloring on them due to their translucent skin, making their blood the reason why they give off such a pretty color. And much like humans and our eyes, they grow into their noses, so they are born with quite the big honker until they reach adulthood. The reason why they're on this list though is because of how they eat. When they come up to their prey, their jaw literally unhinges and launches forward, its skin stretching as it reaches out to eat its meal. Thankfully though, these are found deep below the surface, as deep as 4,300 feet, one even being recorded at exactly 4,490 feet below. The adults usually like to hang far below more than the younger generation.
Well, this is exciting. This news just came out the other day. In the waters off the Solomon Islands, there is a sea creature so massive it could be seen from space. In fact, it's one of the largest living organisms on Earth, a colossal coral colony. Discovered by a team of researchers and filmmakers, this coral is roughly the size of 2 basketball courts. Unlike most coral reefs, which are made up of different colonies, this one is an individual organism, made up of millions of tiny animals called polyps. The species is Pavona clavus, and its size and slow growth suggests it's been around for centuries. Underwater photographer Manu Sanfelix, who first saw it last month, was in awe, saying, quote, "It's a dream to see something unique like this. When Napoleon was alive, this thing was here," end quote. Before this discovery, the largest known coral was in American Samoa, measuring about 22 meters wide, but as marine conservation expert Stacy Jupiter points out, humans have only surveyed about 5% of the planet's marine realm. That means there could still be larger corals hidden out in uncharted waters. What you're looking at here is a newly discovered creature. Again, news about this one just came out the other day. In the Monterey Canyon off California, marine biologist Bruce Robison made a discovery back in 2000. While exploring with robotic vehicles, he came across a strange gelatinous blob with a giant hood, finger-like projections, and colorful internal organs. Fast forward nearly 25 years, and Robison, along with colleague Stephen Haddock, which is a great name for someone who studies fish, they have finally solved the mystery. They've identified this bizarre creature as a brand new type of nudibranch, or sea slug. Now, unlike other sea slugs that crawl along the ocean floor though, this one floats. Looks a lot more like a jellyfish. Even more astonishing, this new nudibranch can jet backward by expelling water from its hood. The hood, as it turns out, is like a Venus flytrap, capable of expanding and contracting to trap its prey. The creature is also bioluminescent, and has both male and female reproductive organs. A pretty fascinating little creature. These are recently discovered octopus species. Roughly 2 miles beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean near Costa Rica, scientists found 4 brand new species of octopus during expeditions in June and December of last year. It all started when researchers spotted pink octopus hatchlings coming out from their eggs at a place known as El Dorado Hill. Jorge Cortez Nunez, a researcher from the University of Costa Rica, said it was unexpected to find so many species of octopus in a small area, first, and second, at 3,000 meters depth. In June, researchers using a remotely operated vehicle named Sebastian found 2 octopus nurseries around hydrothermal springs on the sea floor. They discovered that these octopuses seemed to prefer the warm waters from the vents, which helps shorten their long incubation period. The warm water gives the eggs a better chance of surviving in the cold, dark depths. One of the new species was even given an unofficial nickname, the Dorado octopus, after the spot where it was found. The species has short arms and small eyes, similar to the pearl octopus found off California. The other species had bigger eyes and longer arms. The 4th species is especially mysterious, with bumpy pale skin and a strange row of suckers on each arm. In total, about 310 deep-sea octopus specimens were collected. What you're looking at here is a recently discovered species of fish in China. You'll notice that it doesn't have eyes. They kind of look like raw chicken cutlets or something else that I can't really describe on here. And those dark patches that you see, those are its internal organs. Deep in an underground river in southern China, scientists found these blind pink fish with no eyes. They were swimming in the dark depths of a cave system in Guangxi when researchers first encountered them during surveys between 2019 and 2024. They were on the hunt for Chinese karst loaches, but quickly realized that this fish didn't match any known species. After studying it, the team confirmed that they had discovered a new species. This is the overly complicated scientific name on screen now, so I'll use the nickname Dachshund Chinese karst loach. These tiny fish are only about an inch long and have elongated bodies with no scales. They also have wide heads, narrow mouths, and whisker-like thingies on their heads, but again, no eyes. Researchers believe this species, like others in the area, lives in deep caves with underground rivers and is rarely seen by people. In November of last year, anglers off the coast of Pakistan reeled in a strange catch, a quote, torpedo-shaped predator with teeth on its tongue. At first they thought it was a regular fish, but researchers Sherkhan Panwar and Imtiaz Kashani soon realized they'd actually found something new. And after examining these fish in the lab, they discovered not one, but 2 new species. The first was Brachycentron blotchy, or the blotchy cobia. These predators are about 3 feet long, weigh around 8 pounds, and have small eyes, pointed snouts, and tiny teeth on their jaws, the roof of their mouths, and yes, even their tongues. Inside their stomachs, they found a mix of small fish, crustaceans, and cephalopods. Second species, Brachycentron marchiensis, or the macron cobia, is smaller, about 2.5 feet long, and weighs about 6 pounds. It has a short, pointed head, small teeth, and a greenish coloring with a gray band running along its side. Its stomach contained mostly digested material and some crab parts. How's this for an animal name? The night-armored catfish. Pretty cool, but does it live up to its name? Well, this is one right here. Divers in northern Brazil were exploring the Xingju River, hoping to find some Asacu preto, a thorny black fish often sold in the aquarium trade. Well, it turns out these fish hadn't been documented by science yet. After teaming up with local fishermen and digging through museum collections, scientists realized that this was a brand new species which they named Pseudacanthicus nyctos, or the night-armored catfish. These fish can grow up to 10 inches long and have completely black eyes, forked teeth, and their bodies are covered in armor-like plates and thorny spikes. Living in the murky depths of the river, they're usually found around submerged logs, sometimes as deep as 65 feet. As you could probably tell, they're carnivores, feeding on small aquatic animals. They're also very territorial. The males can get very aggressive, especially when sharing space with other males. Off the coast of Belize, anglers unknowingly caught a new species of shark between 2016 and 2019. First they thought they'd just landed another hammerhead, but something about the shark's unique shovel-shaped heads made scientists take a closer look. And after analyzing the shark's body shape, skeleton, and DNA, researchers realized these were part of a completely new species, the shovelbill shark. These small sharks, measuring up to 3 feet 4 inches long, have these very unique, flat, shovel-looking heads. They're found in coastal waters, estuaries, coral reefs, and seagrass beds from Belize all the way to Brazil. They're often caught by anglers, and experts warn that they may already be highly threatened. As co-author of the study, Damian Chapman said, "It is tragic that we have only just recognized that this species exists, and we are already running against the clock to prevent its extinction." Yeah, that is very sad, especially because these sharks are kind of cute, you know? Off the coast of Saudi Arabia, researchers exploring coral reefs discovered this tiny, really upset-looking fish, and honestly, I think if I looked like this, I would also be in a pretty bad mood all the time. While diving in the Red Sea, they released clove oil into an underwater cave to sedate the fish inside, and a small dark red goby floated to the surface. At first, they weren't sure what species it was, and after several sightings and a few more catches, they figured out why. This was not a species they'd ever seen before. This little fish, only about half an inch long, had a severely curved mouth that gave it this sort of grumpy look. Researchers named it the grumpy dwarf goby because of this permanently unhappy looking facial expression. The fish is incredibly rare, with only 10 specimens found during extensive collections along the Saudi Arabian coast, said the researchers. They live in small caves, rocky overhangs, or crevices about 32 to 100 feet below the surface. Again, in the caves of southern China, researchers discovered a fish which they'd named Liu's cave loach, a new species swimming through heavily polluted water. The creatures caught the attention of scientists visiting the area in 2023. Spelled out for you here is their scientific name, but again, they're also called Liu's cave loach for short. They can grow up to 2.5 inches long. They have elongated bodies covered in tiny scales with bright yellow fins. Their snouts are lined with whiskers, almost like catfish, and their eyes have a yellowish hue. They live in underground rivers and cave pools, but don't show the usual traits of cave-dwelling species. They were also found breeding in a cave pond, despite the water being heavily polluted from nearby sugar factories and duck farms. So far, Liu's cave loaches have only been found in the caves of Yifeng District, Guangxi, a province in southern China near the Vietnam border. Deep beneath the surface of the ocean, researchers have discovered 3 brand new species of sea stars living in some of the most remote and bizarre environments on Earth. The sea stars were found thousands of feet below the surface at methane seeps in underwater valleys using remote-controlled vehicles during surveys between 2003 and 2018. One of the new species showing up on screen in text right now because I don't have a week to learn how to pronounce that. Anyway, it was discovered off the coast of Costa Rica about 3,200 feet down. With flower-like patterns, small plates on its back, these creatures move along the seafloor using tube feet that extend down each arm. Another species, Chimonostella davidalani, also found in Costa Rica, looks similar but has thorny, elongated spines along the edge of its body. The third species, Chimonostella lorisae, has short spines covered in thick skin, and interestingly, all mature specimens looked identical. These deep sea stars seem to live around stuff that sinks to the bottom of the ocean, like sunken wood, which gives them shelter and food. And researchers still aren't sure if the sea stars eat only the wood or if they have other food sources down there. Well, this thing looks creepy. Earlier this year, a team of researchers from China set out on an expedition to the northwestern Pacific Ocean to explore the depths around the Caroline Plate, an area off the coast of the Philippines. They weren't diving themselves, but instead used an underwater robot to explore the area and collect tiny creatures from the ocean floor. And when the robot pulled up a sample from a seamount, among the tiny critters they found was a pregnant amphipod, a type of shrimp-like creature that's just a few millimeters long. But this wasn't like any amphipod they'd ever seen. this was a brand new species. Now been dubbed Eeriest carolinus. It's an interesting but again very creepy looking creature. Good thing it's so small. The eyes in particular were noted as being large and very well pigmented, which helped it stand out among the other species that live in these deep waters. And here's the really interesting part. When the researchers looked inside its body, they found 9 baby amphipods growing inside her. This footage here was captured in 2015, a never before seen species of squid. So a group of researchers from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, Guillermo Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research Kiel, and the University of South Florida teamed up for an expedition in the Gulf of California off Mexico's west coast. Using a remotely operated vehicle, the team was able to dive as deep as 8,000 feet without ever leaving the surface and without disturbing the creature's environment. The team managed to capture a large squid on camera, but soon they noticed something strange about this one. The squid was carrying dozens of giant eggs, around 30 to 40 of them, each about half an inch across. Now, squids of the species they thought this mother was, called gonatids, usually carry eggs that are only about a fifth of an inch in diameter, so these were much bigger. They'd never seen eggs this large in any gonatid squid before, and there's no other squid known to carry eggs of this size. So the researchers figured there was a very good chance they'd discovered a brand new species altogether. Pictured here is a brand new species of fish found in Africa. Earlier this year in Zambia, a strange creature was spotted swimming through a river, heading straight for a bridge. Scientists pulled the creature from the water, at first having no idea what they just found, while it turned out they discovered a brand new species. The team had been in the middle of a project studying a group of fish called Nanocharax, more commonly known as darters. They were looking at preserved specimens collected from rivers in South Africa when something odd started to stand out. The fish from a few specific rivers, mostly caught in 2005, had a distinct pattern that was different from the usual darters they were used to. These fish had a unique scale pattern and a banded coloring that immediately caught the researchers' attention. And after further investigation, they realized that they'd uncovered a completely new species dubbed Nanocharax skeltoni, or Skelton's darter fish. They decided to name the species after Paul Harvey Skelton, a renowned professor at the South African Institute for Aquatic Biodiversity. A study came out this past April about a brand new species of jellyfish discovered off the coast of Florida, pictured here. Peter Schuchert and Richard Collins carried out 91 nighttime scuba dives near Palm Beach over the course of years, and they found some pretty cool stuff, like, just some never before seen jellyfish, for example. After photographing the creatures and capturing 2 of them, they took a closer look and realized they'd found a new species which was soon dubbed Zancleopsis grandis, or the large Zancleopsis jellyfish. These things are just over an inch tall with tentacles stretching more than 2 inches in length. The body itself has a long, narrow shape that shifts as the jellyfish moves through the water. The researchers named it grandis because of the relatively large size and the big bulbs on its tentacles. And just like other jellyfish, Zancleopsis grandis uses jet propulsion to move. It sucks in water and then squirts it back out through a small opening, propelling itself forward through the water. Kind of crazy that these new things were found in Florida. As Collins put it, part of the work we are doing is to demonstrate and document the amazing oceanic biodiversity here in Florida. Florida waters are well studied relative to most of the world's oceans, and yet there is still so much to learn and discover. And yeah, that is crazy because Florida, right? And then you got all this vast water over so much of the earth. Like, who knows what crazy stuff could be out there. Now, this is the first and only piece of footage ever captured of a living genus of squid called this. Just earlier this year, the Schmidt Ocean Institute led a team of oceanographers on an expedition to some of the remotest parts of the southeastern Pacific Ocean. During their month-long mission, they came across 20 never-before-seen species and another 80 that were observed in this part of the ocean for the first time. These squids have only ever been seen on the surface, i.e. they've been brought up in nets, dead. We've never seen one alive swimming around in its natural habitat, so this was pretty amazing to see. And there haven't even been that many specimens of these creatures either. It's such a rare genus that we've only had like a few specimens, and a lot of them came from the late 1800s. Sea cucumbers don't really sound all that scary, but I mean, just look at this one. This is what's called a brown-ringed sea cucumber, and it was just discovered. Scientists on a submarine were exploring the South China Sea when they spotted this small, reddish sea creature. It didn't quite look like anything they'd seen before, and as it turns out, it wasn't anything they'd seen before. It was found during a series of dives between 2018 and 2023, using a manned submersible. When the team surfaced and had a chance to study the creature, which had something like 20 tentacles and over 70 tube feet, they realized that they'd uncovered a new animal and gave it this crazy name that, again, I can't even begin to pronounce. AKA the brown-ringed sea cucumber, though. This new species of sea cucumber can grow to about 8 inches long and around 2 inches wide, and this wasn't all they found either. Yanlu Zhao and Haibin Zhang, part of the research team, also discovered 2 more new species of sea cucumber on the same expedition. Next up, we have another story that came out this past April about a new creature discovered off the southern tip of China. Just what is this thing? An ancient wood carving? Well, no, it's actually the shell of a living animal. A research team from China was exploring a deep sea area called the Haima Cold Seep off the coast of Hainan Island when their underwater robot picked up something from the sea floor. It was a shell, and at first the researchers didn't really think much of it, but once they took a closer look, they were like, well, actually, what exactly is this thing? The shell belonged to a type of mollusk known for living in extreme environments, like cold seeps. These are special areas on the seafloor where chemicals like methane and hydrogen sulfide leak up from the Earth's crust, creating this chemically rich water that only very specific life forms can survive in. This weird shell was just over 4 inches long and had a, quote, robust and rectangular shape. The mollusk's foot, the part that sticks out from the shell when it wants to move around, was described as large with an oval sole. But it was really the shape of the shell that made this thing so unique. It's the fact that it's rectangular. Other species shells are usually curved inward on the ends. Just look at how gorgeous this snail is. On the coastlines of Japan, a tiny new species of sea creature has been found. Hiroshi Fukuda, a researcher and associate professor at Okayama University, first came across these rare snails over 30 years ago when he was still a student. They were actually relatively well known in Japan, but had never been formally documented until last year. Fukuda studied dozens of these snails and ended up naming them this. And luckily, it has a much easier to pronounce nickname, the strange dwarf snail. These snails are tiny, measuring less than 1/10 of an inch long, and Fukuda described these snails as bizarre. These things are small, but they move around quickly, crawling in step-like movements. Fukuda wrote in his paper that they're usually found crawling on muddy walls of earthworm and crab burrows, which might be why they were overlooked for such a long time. This strange-looking animal was discovered in an underwater cave. A team of researchers recently discovered a brand new species of hermit crab in a dark underwater cave in Japan, about 100 feet from the entrance. The 3-person team found this tiny critter in just about 3 feet of water. After carefully examining the male specimen, they realized they had come across a new species. This is its name, also called this. Not even the alternate name is easy to say. This new species is incredibly small though, measuring less than 1 centimeter long. Aw, that's cute. What really set it apart from other hermit crabs were its claws. They were described as strongly unequal and dissimilar. The right claw is moderately slender, the left claw is much smaller, only about half the size of the right one. And this last thing looks like it just hurts. There's like little spines and spikes on it. In March of 2021, researchers took a deep dive into the South China Sea using a manned submersible. During one of their dives, they came across a large crab sitting on some coral. They captured the creature and brought it back to study. Until then, this was a never-before documented species, which was later dubbed Gordonopsis mazupo. Finally, a scientific name that I can actually get my lips around. But they're also known as Mazu's porter crab. This new species is considered pretty big for a crab. Its body is about 1.2 inches long, with legs stretching more than 3.5 inches. When you include its legs, the crab measures over 8 inches across in total. Its claws are especially interesting, described as blade-like. The researchers named it Gordonopsis mazupo after Mazu, the Chinese goddess or grandmother of the sea. And so far, only one of these things has ever been found. News of this just came out a few months back. Scientists finally filmed a colossal squid in its own habitat for the very first time. Not a washed up carcass or something snagged by accident, but a living juvenile cruising through the Southern Ocean near the Sandwich Islands, about 2,000 feet down. Kat Ballstead, a squid researcher at Auckland University of Technology, confirmed the footage and said, "This is the first confirmed footage of the colossal squid at home in the deep sea. This is honestly one of the most exciting observations we've had," end quote. Now, the squid they caught on camera was only about a foot long, but adults can reach up to 23 feet and weigh over 1,100 pounds, making them the biggest invertebrate on Earth. Their eyes alone are massive, about the size of a soccer ball. Squid expert Aaron Evans actually said he started hyperventilating when he saw the footage come through. For good reason too. Most of what we know about colossal squid comes from dead ones, pulled up by fishing nets or from pieces found inside sperm whale stomachs. Kat Ballstead explained why they've been so elusive, saying, "They know we're there long before we know they're there. They are actively avoiding us." This is a photograph of a coelacanth taken in Indonesia for the first time. This is the Indonesian coelacanth, a species scientists believed had gone extinct for 70 million years. Marine biologist Alexis Chapuis spotted it while diving in the Malacca archipelago about 475 feet below the surface. Back in 1938, a coelacanth was pulled up in a fishing net off South Africa, and it was described as one of the biggest natural history discoveries of the 20th century. Since then, sightings have been rare. In 2013, Laurent Balesta managed to photograph wild coelacanths at Sodwana Bay, South Africa, but that was the other known species. The Indonesian coelacanth is different. Researchers are keeping the exact dive location secret for now because the fish are so sensitive to changes in their environment. They don't want people flocking to the area to try and spot one themselves, let alone trying to haul them out of the water. In 2015, researchers studying underwater volcanoes near the Solomon Islands ended up filming something they weren't even looking for: a massive shark that wasn't supposed to be there. Brandon Phillips, a PhD student at the University of Rhode Island, had been dropping baited cameras called drop cams into the deep sea to check out life near an active volcano called Cavachi. One of those cameras went down over 3,000 feet and came back with a bit of a surprise. When the team downloaded nearly 8 hours of footage, they spotted what looked like a giant brown blob in one of the thumbnails. Phillips said, "Both of us looked at each other and said, we gotta look at that thumbnail right now." When they opened the file, they started yelling. They just filmed a sleeper shark, something nobody expected to see that far south. "We were freaking out," Phillips said. Experts later said the shark was probably a Pacific sleeper shark. And if that's the case, it means this was the farthest south anyone had ever seen a Pacific sleeper shark. Sleeper sharks are rarely filmed alive at all. They usually live deep, can grow over 20 feet long, and decompose quickly when brought up, so they're pretty hard to study. In November of 2021, researchers at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute were out with their ROV called Doc Ricketts when they came across a giant phantom jelly. Very, very rare sight. It showed up almost a kilometer underwater in Monterey Bay. Its bell alone is over 3 feet wide, and then it trails 4 long arms that can stretch more than 30 feet. It's massive. Now, MBARI has done thousands of dives. They've only ever spotted this jelly a small handful of times. In fact, since the species was first collected back in 1899, there have maybe been 100 confirmed encounters worldwide. It seems to live all over the planet, in every ocean except the Arctic, but because it lives so deep down, it basically stays hidden from us. Before we had high-tech cameras, scientists tried to study creatures like this using trawl nets. That worked for fish and squid, but with jellies, it was basically useless. They just turn into mush. Now with ROVs shooting high definition, even 4K video, we're finally seeing the phantom jelly the way it actually looks in its natural habitat. Back in 2000, Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute's ROV Tiburon was out exploring the deep off Monterey Bay when researchers saw something they couldn't really place. Nobody knew what to call it, so they just nicknamed it the mystery mollusk. Over the next 20 years, MBARI kept spotting it more than 150 times, and finally, after a lot of work in the lab, they confirmed it's actually a brand new kind of sea slug called this. And this thing lives in the midnight zone, thousands of feet down. Unlike most sea slugs that crawl on the seafloor, this one kind of swims in open water. To eat, it uses that giant hood-like thing on its head, almost like a Venus flytrap, snapping it shut on its tiny prey. It's also bioluminescent. Researchers even saw it detach one glowing finger-type thing from its tail as a decoy to confuse predators. When we first filmed it glowing with the ROV, everyone in the control room let out a loud "ooh" at the same time, said scientist Stephen Haddock. DNA tests also showed that it's so different from other sea slugs, it's enough to get its own separate group in the sea slug family tree. As MBARI's Bruce Robinson put it, our discovery is a new piece of the puzzle that can help better understand the largest habitat on Earth. The ruby sea dragon wasn't officially identified until 2015, which is crazy, because that made it the first new sea dragon discovered in 150 years. Washed up specimen had actually been found back in 2007, about 9 inches long, but nobody realized it was a whole new species until later. Unlike the leafy or common sea dragons that have those long decorative frills, the ruby sea dragon looks a little plainer, with short, stumpy lobes. The name comes from its color, obviously bright red. Scientists think that's not just for show. In deeper water, red light, it disappears fast, which actually makes red animals harder to see, so it works kind of like camouflage. That explains why these guys managed to stay hidden for so long, plus they live deeper than most divers can safely go, which meant no one had ever filmed one alive until 2016. That year, researchers used a remote underwater camera up the coast of Western Australia and finally caught one on video, and the footage was published in 2017. One of the weirdest parts of this animal is its tail. Unlike other sea dragons, the ruby sea dragon has a prehensile tail. Basically, it can grab onto things like a chameleon does. Last year, a team of international scientists just blew the lid off one of the most unexplored areas of the ocean. During a Schmidt Ocean Institute expedition to the Salas by Gomez Ridge, a remote range of underwater mountains stretching from Chile to Rapa Nui, they discovered 160 species that hadn't been recorded in the region before, and they think at least 50 of those might be completely new to science. This campaign found between 50 and 60 potentially new species at first sight, a number that is likely to increase, as we have many samples to work on in the laboratory, said one of the lead researchers from the Barcelona Supercomputing Center. The team documented everything from deep-sea corals and sponges to squids, crabs, and fish. The 40-day expedition included 25 scientists from 5 countries, plus the first Rapa Nui marine biologist, Amelia Ra'apalmatuki. Plesiosaur is one of those creatures everyone's been, of course told is long gone, but stories about it keep popping up. For over 100 years, people have claimed to see long-necked flippered animals in lakes and oceans all over the world. Loch Ness in Scotland, Lake Champlain in Vermont, even up the coast of Japan, and we're not talking about tourists who just want a good story, not always anyway. Some seasoned sailors and fishermen will also swear they saw something out there. Probably the wildest case was in 1977 when a Japanese fishing boat pulled up this decaying carcass near New Zealand. The thing had a long neck, flippers, and looked eerily like a plesiosaur. Scientists just said it was a decomposing basking shark. Others weren't so sure. The resemblance was just a little too on the nose. This is a megamouth shark that was spotted off Indonesia. This species is very rarely seen. People didn't even know it existed until 1976. They can grow up to 18 feet long and feed by filtering plankton through their huge mouths. Megamouths live so deep that almost all footage of them comes from deep-sea submersibles, or accidentally they get caught in fishing nets. The megamouth shark was discovered totally by accident in 1976. Unlike most sharks that chase and bite, the megamouth just cruises along with its mouth open, scooping up tiny plankton and jellyfish, almost like a whale. It's such a strange way to feed for a shark, and again, no one had ever seen one until a random encounter with a US Navy ship's anchor line, and since then, only a handful have ever been spotted. About 6 years ago, Ocean X managed something that had never been done before. They tagged this Bluntnose Sixgill shark straight from a submersible, no bringing it to the surface first. Now, these sharks are living fossils. They've been around long before most dinosaurs existed, and they barely ever show up on camera. So this footage you're looking at here is almost like catching a glimpse of what the deep waters of Earth looked like hundreds of millions of years ago. This first creature on the list is the Protoila. Not exactly a household name, but that's probably because this thing was believed to have gone extinct not 100 years ago, not a couple thousand even. Scientists thought it went extinct about 4 million years ago. This tiny sea creature, related to corals and sea anemones, usually only shows up as little holes on the tubes of marine worms. Until recently, it was only known from fossils found in Europe and the Middle East, but when scientists in New Zealand dug up fossils of this thing that were supposedly from a time after the species had already disappeared, it got them curious enough to go back and check some tube worm samples they'd collected back in 2008, and it turns out Protoila had been alive and well in New Zealand waters the whole time. They just hadn't noticed. As National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research scientist Dennis Gordon put it, it's one of those rare cases where studying fossils actually led to finding a species still alive today. Amura's whale is a ghost of the ocean, so rare that until 2015 scientists had never seen one alive. They were first confirmed as a separate species in 2003, based on DNA and physical differences from bride's whales. But even then, they were known only from dead specimens. That all changed in October of 2015 though, when an international team of biologists filmed Amura's whales off the coast of Madagascar. They spotted 44 individuals and collected some samples, making it the first time this whale had ever been documented alive in the wild. Amura's whales are pretty small by whale standards, only about 32 to 39 feet long or 10 to 12 meters, and people often mistake them for bride's whales. One of the coolest things about them is their asymmetrical lower jaw. White on the right side, dark on the left. Their fins are unique as well, which make them easier to tell apart if you're lucky enough to see one. Since that first footage, Amura's whales have popped up a handful of times, but sightings are still rare, and scientists still have a lot to learn about them. For almost 50 years, nobody had seen the Pastrum cyathiform, a rare stalked jellyfish that was last spotted in France back in 1976. Most experts figured it had gone extinct. But then Neil Roberts, just a tourist on an island off the coast of Scotland, flipped over a rock and found 4 of them. Roberts took some photos, but when he looked online, he noticed what he'd just photographed didn't really match any other photos. The only thing that looked close were old drawings. Turns out Neil had just taken the first ever photo of the species. Guy Freeman, editor of British Wildlife magazine, was amazed. When Neil first shared the photos, it was like seeing a ghost, Freeman said. Continuing, this thing had only ever existed in old drawings. It was suddenly there, in the flesh. This image was shared to X by the National Parks Board, who wrote, "The Neptune's cup sponge is the first animal described from Singapore. It was collected in Rafflesia's presence in 1819 and described by Thomas Hardwick, presumed to be extinct until its reappearance in the region. It was rediscovered here in 2011. So a bit more on this. Neptune's cup is a sea creature people thought was gone for good. By 1912 it was considered extinct because it had been overharvested. Then in 2011, divers off Thailand and Singapore found a handful of these things alive. Singapore moved some to a marine sanctuary to protect them, but the same sanctuary is full of fish like map puffers and copperband butterfly fish that love snacking on them. Not exactly ideal, but since 2017, more have been spotted off Cambodia. Unlike most sponges that attach to reefs, these guys just anchor themselves in the sand at the bottom of the ocean. Turns out they weren't extinct, they were just really good at hiding. 2 fishermen off Gran Canaria got the surprise of their lives when they came face to face with one of the ocean's weirdest predators, a goblin shark. Now the thing is, these sharks are found way deep below the surface, but this one turned up while Marcos Hernandez and Ramon Santana were fishing. When it came up, we had no idea what it was, Marcos said. At first we thought it was a swordfish because of the snout, but then we realized it wasn't. It had leathery skin, and after looking online, we understood what it really was." End quote. The shark even showed off its signature party trick, where its jaw juts out. After confirming it was a goblin shark, they released it back into the water. This is the first confirmed sighting of the species in these waters. Goblin sharks are often called living fossils because they've barely changed in over 100 million years. They're rarely seen alive, let alone at these depths. Big fin squid are insanely rare. So rare that most deep sea explorers will just go their whole careers without seeing one. Big fin squid were first caught on camera in September of 1988 off northern Brazil, nearly 4,735 meters down, which is over 15,000 feet. They've got these crazy long skinny arms and big fins that give them this totally alien look. They really do look like something from another planet, and yes, those are arms, not tentacles. Big fins have 4 normal arms and 2 specialized feeding tentacles, but arms stretch so ridiculously long, sometimes as long as their whole body, it's easy to mistake them for tentacles. In 1992, a submersible spotted 2 off the coast of West Africa, and in 2000, an ROV in the Gulf of Mexico filmed one estimated at 7 meters long. More recently, an NOAA submersible captured a big fin in November of 2021 off Florida at nearly 2,400 meters deep. Some of them probably live over 6,000 meters down, which is basically the bottom of the sea. Scientists still don't fully understand how they live down there, but each rare sighting gives them an incredible peek at one of the strangest, most mysterious creatures in the ocean. The smooth-toothed black-tipped shark was thought to be extinct over 100 years ago, until it was rediscovered in 2008 at a fish market in Kuwait. The first specimen was caught back in 1902 by a naturalist Wilhelm Hein in Yemen and sent to the Vienna Museum along with other animals and plants, and for decades this thing went mostly unnoticed. Then in 1985, scientist Jack Garrick examined that old specimen and he identified it as a new species. Since no other specimens had been seen, scientists assumed it might be extinct, and some even questioned whether it was a valid species at all. But then in 2008, during a research expedition, the smooth-toothed blacktip appeared at Kuwait's sharkfish market. These sharks are relatively small, growing up to 4 feet long with a greenish-colored body. They seem to prefer shallow waters and feed mainly on small, bony fish. Not much else is known about them, but the smooth-toothed blacktip is currently listed as vulnerable on the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List of threatened species. The Shoshone pupfish is a tiny fish that lives in the middle of the desert, in small springs and drainage areas around Shoshone Springs, California. Scientists thought it had gone extinct by 1969, but in 1986, it was rediscovered hiding in a drainage ditch that had been covered in thick cattails. The population was so small at the time that almost all the fish were collected and sent to universities for breeding programs, just to make sure the species didn't disappear completely. These fish are built to survive extreme conditions. They can handle water temperatures from freezing all the way up to 44 degrees Celsius or 111 degrees Fahrenheit. They grow up fast as well, reaching sexual maturity in just 4 to 6 weeks. The coelacanth is a fish that scientists thought had been gone for 66 million years, basically since the time of the dinosaurs. But then in 1938, a fisherman off South Africa hauled one up and brought it to Marjorie Courtney Latimer, a museum curator. She didn't totally know what she had at first, but after calling in scientist J.L.B. Smith, it was confirmed that this fish, known only from fossils, was actually still a living species, a species that became known as the quintessential living fossil. Coelacanths live in the deep sea, usually between 150 and 700 meters down, or about 490 and 2,300 feet. They've got these weird lobed fins and a tail unlike anything you'd normally see on a fish, which is why scientists think they're kind of like this bridge, a missing link between fish and the first land animals. That's how long these things have been around. Since that first discovery, another species, known as the Indonesian coelacanth, was spotted off Indonesia in 1997. The vaquita is a tiny porpoise living in the northern part of Mexico's Gulf of California. It's basically the rarest marine mammal on Earth. As of 2025, there are fewer than 10 left. They're small, only about 5 feet long. They have dark rings around their eyes. They stick to shallow, murky waters, so that makes spotting them harder. The biggest danger for these things isn't natural predators, it's us. Fishermen set nets to catch another endangered fish called the totaba, and vaquitas get accidentally trapped in them. These other fish they're trying to catch are highly prized, especially its swim bladders, so these nets keep being used even though they're deadly for these porpoises. Conservation teams are patrolling their habitats quite often. They remove nets, they use underwater microphones to try and track them, but just aren't enough resources to fully protect them. So that's a fun note to end on.